We get so many questions in our inbox about insomnia and why can't I shut off my brain? Desire to be in my heart. I can't get there. I don't even know what that would mean because my brain won't shut up. I have this negative voice in my head that is relentless. So, when you talk about that before you go to sleep routine,
Mhm.
how could that impact just getting that voice to maybe quiet down long enough to get that sleep?
Well, for sure. I mean, it comes down to having some kind of presence practice in whatever way that looks.
Okay.
For someone with a very active mind who doesn't have a lot of training in these mindfulness practices, it could be throwing on a very relaxing, soothing sound that can give the mind something to rest into. So all these frequencies are great for that kind of thing. It could be reading a particular book that makes someone feel present and connected. It could be traditional prayer time. For me, it's sitting in a chair, like a straight back chair that I have in my room. That's the dedicated spot that I end my day before transitioning into sleep, to sit in what now feels for me like joyful presence, and whatever comes up, and it's a great ritual. I'm not as concerned about answering how the person who is in that state can fix that, because if they commit to whatever practice they insert into that slot, if there is a nightly practice, in 1 year, all of that will be changed. It changes on its own when we add spaciousness and presence and recognize that, like, these are kind of sacred times in our awareness. And if we can have some kind of habit for processing, it could be basically like anything. It's kind of like, this is a time to exercise. You could go row, you could go on the elliptical, you could do push-ups. Choose whatever one feels good, but like, if you do it, you will improve. And that's why I think an evening mindfulness practice is probably even more important than a morning one. And so hear me out.
Uh-huh.
In this time of like the day when we don't properly unwind, process, and do it consciously, what we do over the course of the night is typically subconsciously ruminate on these tangles and webs of attachment and pain that we had from the day before, which is setting ourselves up again subconsciously the next day for stress, anxiety, unresolved tension that then gets thrown and shot out this cannon of like the next day of your life, let alone with all the family pressures that come with having kids. And then you're always in this reactive cycle. Some of the greatest, most effective humans of all time have had practice of effectively setting the subconscious environment before going to bed, doing a reflection on what happened that day, what was learned, maybe even like consciously releasing tension in the body through some breathing practice and saying it's okay. Like, what happened today? In fact, it happened and it was maybe even perfect. And then what do I want to experience through this dream state? Like, what is the intention here? What do I want to do tomorrow? You're just planting healthier soil that everything else starts to work better. And so we're talking from more of like a fundamental environment standpoint first. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, because our days in this 3D are an experience of time. Like, sun goes around, we have a 24-hour cycle, we have a sleep and we have a wake. So if we can just first off optimize this one first gear, which is the gear rhythm of waking and sleeping, and then how we can gracefully transition through those phases, everything else upstream is going to get better. That's why we don't start with tactics, you start with a foundation. And I threw health in there too, because the body cycles through this is a big thing too. You're eating the wrong kinds of foods, too many stimulants, like, good luck. You've changed the physiology in such a way that it cannot operate naturally.
Yeah. Nothing can get through.
Right.
So even new ideas, everything is just like bottlenecked
Yes.
because your body can't do anything else. It's in survival.
Let alone eating the wrong foods at night, and your whole digestive system is in knots. All the blood flow goes to GI tract. You're hot. It's inflamed. And this is why I think a lot of the great yogic traditions like certainly advise people not to eat heavy meals too late at night, and
Mhm.
knows that it reliably leads to stirring up the mind into oftentimes agitated sleep. New longevity guy exploded on the scene, Brian Johnson. He's spending millions of dollars optimizing his body. He's got this blueprint stuff.
Yeah.
The number one like longevity hack that he's discovered after millions of dollars spent is that he eats dinner at like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, and doesn't push food. So just bringing that up as a small subtle note that the late night eating has an impact on this whole thing. The spiritual traditions where they advise fasting,
Yes.
people typically feel lighter and clearer and less reactive. And there's a big tie between the digestive system, the nervous system, and then what we feel in terms of our mental emotional space.
And so all you're recommending is to do the same thing with your energy, really,
Yes.
before bed, is to digest all the thoughts, all the energy that you
Beautiful.
had for the day,
Yes.
and not go to bed with that heavy, energetic meal sitting
Yes.
on your psyche.
Yes. Yes. And for sure. And you're never going to fully relax when you haven't done that processing. And it could be as simple as like you could actually close loops with tasks and projects too mentally, maybe even just creating your to-do list for the next day. So there's that tactical level and then there's the deeper emotional processing level. Do it all. It can
Yeah.
be 2 minutes and maybe even more effective than someone who's stressed out about not experiencing enlightenment at night during their 10-minute audio meditation. This is far more helpful.
Yes. And it gives you the space the next morning to wake up with that clean slate to prepare for your day
Hmm.
versus thinking, oh, I have all yesterday to process and I have to think about today.
Correct. And then the morning could be as simple as drinking your water and setting an intention. Or it could be a more elaborate practice if that feels great for you. It's a
Yeah.
perfect time to do at least one thing that you would say is self love and self care. So for me, that is a morning meditation practice. For other people, that might be a morning workout. Before you get to this point as a parent and as oftentimes as a leader, where you're putting a lot of other people's needs at the forefront, this is one sacred time that there's no reason that you wouldn't do one awesome thing for yourself. So, whatever that is, insert it. It could be anything. But that will start every day where you are feeling nourished because you're choosing you and you're choosing what is healthy. And what is healthy is what we want to do naturally.